So in the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, she talks about how when you start to work on art projects, opportunities present themselves so that you align with what you're working on. This includes opportunities to learn more about the world around you. And watching The Conformist, while my country is going through a descent into fascism, yeah, let's have an animated discussion. The Conformist follows Marcello, a man with a dark, painful past who really just made it his life's mission to be as normal as possible. In order to achieve this goal, he decides to join Ovra and marry a normal girl. The problem with that, though, while things technically go according to plan, Marcello starts to realize he's taken on more than he can chew, handle, bite, whatever word you want to put in there, and it becomes overwhelming when he's given his first assignment. This movie stars Jean-Louis Trantino, I hope I'm saying that right, Stefina Sandrelli, Gastone Moschin, Dominique Sanda, and was directed by Bernardo Bertolucci and written by Alberto Moravia, with the screenplay adapted with Bernardo Bertolucci. Yeah, I feel like I have to give you guys a new confession every time I do another episode, but to be honest, I felt way out of my depth here. This movie was absolutely beyond me, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. There was so much happening. I was so focused on what I was seeing that I would forget what I was hearing, and then I would focus on what I was hearing so much that I would miss what I was seeing. I actually watched this movie months ago, and didn't record a video of it because I felt so lost. I knew I wouldn't be able to do this movie justice. I honestly still don't know if I'm going to be able to do this movie justice, but I'm willing to try. And sometimes a participation trophy is not the worst thing in the world. Maybe. There are worse fates. This is one of those movies I know is so impactful, but man, I was not ready. I could follow the main storyline, but there was so much nuance that I knew meant something I was missing. It was just out of my reach. It was like trying to find the right glasses prescription. Like I could see and identify the object, but it wasn't clear. I couldn't see all the details. So I recruited some help and actually watched some analysis videos of this movie. Normally I do some research, but I really wanted to see what I was missing. The biggest help was How the Conformist Contextualizes Fascism by Special Interests. Oh my gosh, guys, they are so cool. And I really enjoyed learning from them. If you have any inkling to learn more about this movie, you should absolutely check them out. Before we get into what they said, though, we need to understand fascism. Most people in my country think they know what it is and yet can't really explain it. So bear with me for a minute. Fascism is usually called a far-right authoritarian ultra-nationalist movement, and it is led by a dictatorial leader. It is the belief in a natural social hierarchy and militarism. The two biggest examples of fascist regimes were Hitler from 1933 to 1945 and Mussolini from 1922 to 1943, which is the time frame the Conformist is set in. Fascism goes with the Italian word fascio, meaning a bundle or a group. This is the idea of strength and unity, which in some ways sounds really nice until you realize that it also means suppression of opposition. As Americans, we focus on individualization and say whatever we want, almost to the point where we ignore all community. So the idea that we only focus on one group as a whole can be very foreign to an American. When you tie in a dictatorial leader and militarism, I promise I can talk, it is America's worst nightmare. There are some groups, obviously, that believe in this kind of regime. The problem is there's always a point where they splinter off from each other. Because fascism tends to focus on an extreme authoritarianism and nationalism, an effect of this is racial purity. This can lead to genocides, massacres, sterilizations, killings, and deportations. None of this sounds familiar at all. What's fascinating is if you're watching this in the year 2026, which is when I'm making this, this literally feels like what America is struggling with right now. We just witnessed the murder of Alex Peretti, a nurse for U.S. vets, because he was protesting ICE agents and the way they've been breaking up homes. Yet for a while, the news has been calling him a domestic terrorist, which is crazy because ICE took his gun and then shot him 8 times. And anyone who thinks ICE is deporting people who don't belong here legally, but they're also raiding schools, raiding jobs, raiding court hearings where people are paying taxes or trying to do it the right way. So doing this channel is supposed to be a fun thing. Just a chance to learn more about filmmaking so that I could be a great filmmaker and great dissector of great films And that's why I'm doing this video now. I feel like it's timely. I will not do it as much justice as I'd like to, but I think watching this movie can help people kind of see the insanity of it. Anyways, understanding this, I think this helps us for a few reasons. We get to see what Marcello is striving for. This idea of normalcy included the idea of following an ultra-nationalist movement that does not appreciate anyone who is different from them. When you look at the fact that Marcello was unfortunately molested as a child and then thinks he murdered his molester, you can see why he wants to deny anything that's countercultural. He hates this part of himself so much he wants to bury it. He wants to deny it, pretend it never happened, as do a lot of people who have dealt with assault. It's something that doesn't leave you as much as you want it to. Then when you include his parents and how his father is in an asylum and his mother is dealing with a drug addiction while also having an affair with her driver, there's so much self-hate here. There's so much self-hate here. Marcello doesn't want to be in charge. He doesn't want to be a great leader. He doesn't even truly care about the cause of fascism, but he wants normalcy. He wants to fit in. So much so that even in those moments where you can see him questioning if he's making the right decisions, he's too afraid to leave because it proves that he, in fact, is not normal. And it's hard to watch Marcello. It's hard to watch him because you can see how hard he's striving for this, and I'm like, aren't you exhausted? Aren't you exhausted trying so hard to be something you're not? That's gotta be painful. But he keeps going. A scene that I think unfortunately highlights Marcello's normalcy is when he meets with the priest to make his confession. He wants to make a confession for the future. But he talks about his sins and interactions with Lino, the soldier who assaulted him as a child. The priest is so invested in this story that Marcello has to basically cut him off and say, it's almost as if you think sodomy is a more mortal sin than killing somebody. The church is so big on focusing on issues that aren't the point most of the time. Marcello mentions that he's already asked for forgiveness for this moment, and that isn't what he's here for. But this priest is so focused on this, and Marcello's like, can I finish my story? And I hate that this is a moment of normalcy, and I hate that this is a moment that makes Marcello feel less normal. He doesn't realize that so many people go through this when they confess. So many people try to talk about their issues to the church, and the church just like reams and reams and reams on the wrong thing and completely isolates people. This is coming from someone who grew up in the church. I loved growing up in the church. I have very happy memories there, but you can't love something and not acknowledge the issues that they have. Unfortunately, this is a very normal moment that Marcello is experiencing, but he doesn't realize it. And he doesn't realize that this makes him more normal than he thinks he is. If anything, it makes him realize he's more different than everybody else because the priest is responding in such a way. It's very unfortunate. And I wonder how many moments people have where something makes them feel less normal than they actually are. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when Italio, Marcello's best friend, throws him that congratulations party for his wedding. Everyone at the party is blind, and it's hard to tell if any of these people besides Italio are even Marcello's friends. Marcello starts to question some of the decisions he's making in his life and if he could really be normal. Just so interesting to throw a party for someone and none of his friends are there? Or is it that all his friends are blind, which we know why everyone is blind? Something that Special Interests pointed out that I didn't realize was that Italo is hinting that both he and Marcello have different sexual preferences. I didn't catch that. Sorry, I just didn't catch it. I didn't know why he thought they were both different. This is important to highlight because as Marcello asks what a normal man is, Italo talks about that it is a man who looks at the bum of a beautiful woman and then looks up and realizes 4 or 5 other men are also looking at her doing the same thing. And it emphasizes finding people. A normal man is someone who finds people who are the same as him. But something I noticed, think about this. This is, okay. Something I noticed, Italo was blind as well as gay. He would not and could not do that if he wanted to. He wouldn't look at a woman's bum. Though he is using this as an example for what normal is, finding people who are the same as you and act as you, he's using it as an example that he doesn't believe he or Marcello could relate to, almost convoluting the answer. This moment is further emphasized when Italo says he is never wrong while we see he has 2 different colored shoes on. It's fascinating to me that his example of what a normal man is has 2 things that Italo himself can't do. Italo feels like he is not a normal man. He thinks this emphasizes the point of you and I are different, that's why we found each other, and that is normalcy, finding people that we can relate to who think the same as us. He thinks that helps him and Marcello feel normal, but Marcello again starts to feel more ostracized. And it's this crazy thing of all these scenes doing these fake outs that are just crazy to me. Marcello thinks he's being isolated when he's having a normal experience that a lot of people have in church. And then here, Italo's saying, yeah, we're normal. You and I find our normality in each other. When Marcello just now feels more isolated and realizes he must dip further into fascism if he really wants to be normal. Y'all giving this man whiplash. Y'all giving me whiplash. I'm exhausted and I just got here. What's crazy is I probably love this scene the most, and it was actually cut from the original film for time. They had to cut the whole thing because the movie was too long. It wasn't until the 2006 re-release that this scene even came out. And it's just like, it's such a good scene. How are we not going to have this in the movie? It says so much. And there's more in it that I didn't talk about because I didn't notice it, and I don't want to just take everything someone else noticed. But there's so much happening in the scene that really emphasizes the relationship between Marcello and Italo. It's a very poignant, pivotal scene, and I almost want to watch the movie without the scene to see how that makes me feel. See if I notice a big difference. See if it changes the film for me. Because it's such a big scene, guys. And it wasn't in the movie. I can't make eye contact with anyone else, so I'm looking at my microphone. It's just crazy to me. Let's be honest, Marcello's a terrible person. He wants a wife who is, and I quote, trivial, mediocre, with simple thoughts. Every woman's dream. Isn't sexually interested in her until she starts to talk about her assault in detail. And he's so aroused by this that he reenacts it while she's talking about it. Ugh. That's, first of all, disgusting. This is not exposure therapy. Falls in love with his target's wife, then forces himself on her. The only tender moment, and I use this term without an ounce of gravity in the loosest possible way, is when he meets the prostitute who is also played by Dominique Sanda, or Anna in the movie. It's almost as if it's foreshadowing what their relationship will look like further in the movie. It's the way he treats women, man. It's just, they are props to move him along. They are receptacles for his emotions. They are places to reenact his trauma. It's rough. It's rough. After Marcello meets the prostitute, he's given an assignment and a gun where he starts to play with it in the same room as the person who assigns him. You can even see the person who assigns him. You can't see it. You hear how nervous the guy is because Marcello points the gun at him at first. And part of me wonders if this goes back to Marcello's random childlike moments that he has every once in a while, or if it's him pretending to be something he's not, this hotshot spy. In all honesty, his desire to be normal makes me think this is not the case because spies aren't normal. I would never call a spy normal. Maybe he was trying it on for fun. I generally don't understand this moment at all. It makes me laugh because his poses are crazy, and then he's like, "Where's my hat?" But besides that, I don't understand. You know? I don't know. Sassy bone. The cave allegory is something that I enjoyed thoroughly learning about in college, and I enjoy the conversation about it here when the professor and Marcello are talking about how it ties into fascism. But what I did not catch was the idea that in the end, Marcello is still in the cave. And he turns back to look at the audience in the end, and you really see he's behind the bars, and there's so much fire, so there's so much shadow. How did I not catch that? How did I not catch that? How did I not catch that? How did I not get? Do I even care about allegories? Apparently not, because I didn't catch that, and that's such a good scene. Like, I'm so mad that went over my head. This movie is so intimidating, it makes my brain shut off. So moments that I feel like maybe I'd catch in other places, I didn't catch here. That sucks. What a way to humble me, man. Bernardo, what are you doing to me, my guy? Great work, but I'm annoyed. I do think the one reason I did not catch this is because I see how he tries so hard to flip to the other side at the end of the movie and act like he's not fascist anymore. He tries to get Lino killed by accusing him of the murder of the professor and Anna. And then he yells at Italo, telling everyone that he is a fascist. It seems like he's still trying to fit in, but I guess the cave is not just a cave for fascism, but for conformity and complacency. The desire to be normal is what Marcelo is striving for, even at the cost of his dearest friend and his own psyche. And so when I focused on the allegory of the cave just being about fascism, the thought of the cave being his desire to be normal completely went over my head. I completely missed it. Movies like this always make me question, at what point are we allowed to call the victim the villain? Marcelo had a rough life, terrible childhood, and just wants to assimilate. However, we can't just allow him to be considered a tragedy. He had multiple times to change things, be better, live differently. I can be a black and white kind of person at times, but even then it's important to remember that black and white moments rarely exist in reality. There's a spectrum here, where more often than not, one end is the victim and the other end is the villain, and it's usually impossible to see when it slides all the way over to the other end until it's too late. Some people argue that because most of this life was happening to Marcelo, that he couldn't be a villain. He wasn't proactive enough. And I would argue that makes him more of a villain. He had multiple times to be better, do better, yet he stayed by and did worse than nothing. He watched. He engaged. He sat back and ate popcorn as all of these moments are happening to him. He doesn't murder, but he watches the murders happen. He doesn't find out where they're going, but they're told to him. Marcelo just lets things happen to him. And is in his desire to be normal, I guess he achieved it. Because it's so much easier to just sit back and pretend like nothing matters. And it sucks that that's happening to them. So maybe Marcelo got what he wanted after all. There's a lot more to talk about in this movie, and maybe I'll do a part 2 one day. But I really wanted to focus on the things I was able to figure out and some things that were fleshed out a little more by getting help from the 2 videos I mentioned. I'll post their links in the bio so that you guys can reach out to them, give them a lot of love. They were a huge help in me kind of solidifying some hazy ideas I was trying to understand. But overall, I give this movie 4.7 out of 5 gun poses. I think that this movie is in so many ways beyond me, and I'm really looking forward to watching it again in a few months to see if maybe I understand it better. I hope so. I hope I learn more. Anyways, that's my time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys, as always, have an amazing day, and see you later.